Okay. So, run it by me again. You're thinking of having a podcast, right? But maybe you don't know how to start a podcast, or maybe you don't know what platform to be on. I know. There's a lot. But maybe you also don't know what kind of budget you'll need, right? Okay. Well, how about this? 216 Creator Studios. Ring a bell? Okay, well, here. There you can buy a pre-built show. Or, better yet, you can build your own show. Have all the creativity in the world. And the best part about that, it can be all done within your budget. So, no worries. How about this? Start here. Just go to 216creatorstudios.com. And I guarantee you, they will help you find your voice.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Cappuccino here and another episode of Let's Talk Local. Hey, listen, if you like what you see here today, let's go ahead and go to the old Google box. Click on the YouTube channel there, 216 Creator Studios. Click on the live tab for some of the newest stuff that we're doing. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Ding that bell for future notifications. We do appreciate your support. Jackie is in the house again, bringing awesome people back to the table. Jackie, how you been?
Doing great. Always staying busy. Got new projects as usual. Helping students, getting them money for school.
Well, you're just nonstop, always. I think in the last episode, we talked about this cookie business, which I still don't see cookies.
Yeah, I got a little, I'm too busy.
It's been over a week, no cookies. Okay, well, all right. I'll leave it at that. And now that everybody you bring to the table, first of all and foremost, they're awesome. And now they all know that you do the cookie thing, and they don't have cookies either. So
yeah, you need to shut your trap about the cookies over there.
I can't do that. I can't do it. Awesome. Hey, listen, why don't you go ahead and introduce your guest today? It's great to see you, by the way, Jay.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. We have Kirk Ashburn of Wealthspan Advisors, and he is not your typical financial advisor, so much more. And so we needed to have him on here today to kind of, reveal, like, what are you doing different, and just talk a little bit about how you got started. So welcome, Kirk.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Kirk and I go way back. I think we met in 2015 when I started working for a financial firm, and I was contracted to do college planning for them. So that's where I got my start in working one-on-one with students. And so I got to know Kirk and his style of advising. Even before he started Wealthspan, he was already bringing this real great personal element to the table when he's working with people and setting up their finances. And there's a lot of financial advisors out there, and so you've always stood out to me as somebody who's like doing things different, somebody who actually cares about people and not just selling a product or selling a plan. So let's talk a little bit about you as an advisor, and then we'll get into Wealthspan and highlight some great stuff from your book. So why financial advising?
I ask that of myself some days. I actually started. I actually went to culinary school before I finished up with business, but I did. I think as even younger, I just always wanted to be helping people. I know that sounds silly, but I think there was just always that element. I think it was my grandmother. My grandmother was like, you'd be out with her. She knew everyone. It didn't matter where we went. My grandmother knew somebody, and we were going to be talking to them. And it's like she remembered everything about all these people. It didn't matter if you're at the local diner or the gas station or whatever. She was going to remember something about that. And I think that always stuck with me. And I do have that memory just to remember things about people. So, and then starting working with people, and I guess it was natural. And this is a business that you get to really help people. And I know people that's maybe like a little silly, but it's true, because if you care enough, if you have enough empathy, that you care about their life, you care about what's going on, you care about their kids, their grandparents, whatever, because it all is interconnected.
Yeah.
And I didn't come up with the saying, but I just remember seeing it's like, not about your money, it's about your life. And people are always like, well, money doesn't make you happy. Well, money does help you do the things you love to do.
Yeah.
Well, it rents it, right? Rents the hell out of it. Money is the love of money could be the root of all evil, and I've heard that before. And so, a Wealthspan coach, really, I would like to take the word advisor out of it.
Yeah.
Because then you're stuck in the pool and you're capped, and people already have a prediction of what you might be. You're more of a coach, and you're looking out to build relationships, which is the real sell. Because once you build a relationship and you know somebody, you know their ins and outs, you kind of already have the talent of letting them know what's good for them as well, as long as there's an open, honest, transparent relationship, right?
And I think that's the key piece, open and honest. And I think, and Jackie knows this, working with a lot of college students. It's like, if you don't have them opening up to you, what are you getting from that? Right. How are you supposed to help them?
Right.
And I think that's the same within so many businesses, right? It's like, if you walk into Nordstrom's and they say, how can you help me? And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? It's like,
right.
Do I want pants? Do I want a shirt? And that's kind of Wealthspan is bringing that back, and I've been doing this for 22 years. It's like, what are we looking at? Everyone's always just looking at their money. I'm growing it. Look how much I have now. If you're going back to the 90s and, the big boom, then we had the early crash in 2000, 1999.
Yep.
And then it went up again. We have 08, another big crash. And it's like, but people forget. Mm-hmm. They forget about what happened. And especially now where we're at, everything is up. I don't care what about politics. It's just, the point is that the market's up and people's money is up. But are they planning for their future or their present? Mm-hmm. And that's with Wealthspan. It's like, we talk about life expectancy and we look at your life, but one of the things I always want to remind people is, like, I'm not talking about when you're going to die.
Right.
It's like, we're going to talk about how you're going to live.
Yeah. So this is so fascinating. I remember you gave me a copy of your book years ago. I don't even remember how many years, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I was reading through it and I was just like, why isn't everyone doing this? It just makes sense. And so let's dig into that. Like, what is this Wealthspan, edge that you have? Like, what is this calculator? Like, let's dig into that, because it's fascinating.
And it was the one thing you said, why isn't everyone doing this? Because this has been something that maybe I gravitated to early on in my career in this business, is like, I always wanted to talk more about the people. not necessarily about their money, but it's like, let me find out more about you. And that's kind of what kept me going down this path of how do we get deeper and deeper into understanding why am I planning anything for you, be it life insurance, be it your money in the market, be it long-term care, whatever. Why am I even suggesting that to you? Does it matter? Do you care? And when Wealthspan was, I guess, born out of certain things, and one of them was meeting, actually was one of my clients. His name is Dr. J. Olshansky, and actually one of the authors of the book as well. And he kind of started talking about this, life expectancy. I know we all heard it, and we've heard it. And there are calculators out there, like you can go on the Social Security website and they can calculate your lifespan, but it's very generic. It's only taking very few things into play. And one of the things, and I know this is maybe something that we can pull up later, but I'll talk about it, is just quickly in the little short dive into different calculators, is that they're not using who you are and what you are. And that's where we talk about one of the most calculators, class 1. They're looking at just your birth date and who are you, and that's about it. Going deeper into a hyper personalized life expectancy of the person, we're taking it further into age, gender, your different statistics, how much money you make, where do you live, how many kids, how you're married, getting deeper into you. And now there's a algorithm that was created by these scientists, Dr. J and his other partners, and they've been doing this for 30 years, and there's a million different things that he's written, and came up with this calculator to say, okay, now this is a conversation we should be having, because most advisors, who they be when they do a financial plan, they're saying, well, the generic term is generic timeline is you're going to live to 95. How many people do you know that have lived to 95?
One.
That's
2.
Yeah, I mean, it's not many. And yes, we may be living longer, even though over this last 5 or 6 years there's been a change in that too. Different things have happened in the world. But we're all different. There's an average, and then there's always that positive and negative to it. And guess what? Most people are not average.
So then what happens? What's the problem that occurs when you're only planning for this generic age that is not realistic? Like, what does that mean for people's money and plans? Great question, because that's really becomes part of this point, is that people are, let's say, planning out to 95. And then a lot of people have not planned enough or saved enough or invested enough, and they're going, well, I'm not going to have enough money to make it there. Well, that may be true, but is it really true about how long they're going to make it? And again, I will always say that this as many times again, this is not about when you're going to die. It's how long you're going to live. So we want to be inspired by that time to do things. But that's one of the biggest problems, is that we're planning too long, or we're not planning the right way for the people, for that person. Because what do most people want to do? And unfortunately, it's usually when people retire, is like, what's the first thing that people want to do when they retire? Usually. I mean,
Fish.
Travel, fish,
Right.
do all these things. But one of the biggest misconceptions, and I'm kind of giving it away, do you think people spend more, less, or the same amount of money when they retire?
I would think that they would spend more.
You're
I'm
a
not
little
retired.
You're,
That's
you're,
probably what I would do.
you're a little different. Okay, you kind of got it right.
Right.
Most people are going to spend the same, or actually more, and specifically more, in that first 10 years after they retire. But a lot of people will say to me, less, because I'm not, driving every day. I'm not, taking my lunch every day. I'm going to be. But the fact of the matter is, they're not changing.
Right.
And if I told somebody okay, when you retire, you got to spend $5,000 less a month. How's that going to make you feel?
It makes me feel
Trapped.
trapped, like I
Yep.
did something wrong.
Right.
Right.
But most people don't have to.
Nope.
Now, I'm saying there are some people that maybe do have to cut back a little bit. But the consensus is people want to do things because they put it off. And that's the sad part. And that's another part of this calculator is getting people to look at their lives differently. Don't look at that point in the future to say, when I retire, I'm
Right.
going to do that.
What about now? Right.
What about right now? And that's right. What are we told, by so many counselors in the world?
So, Kirk, quick question for you. So, does everybody have a plan? Like the guy who lives in debt, right? What would the advice be for like, hey, like I want a plan, but I live check by check?
Well,
How does that work out?
Well, I mean, I think that's still a point of reference, right?
Right.
What is that person doing to change their life?
Right.
Because most people on a daily basis, unless they're sick and or ill or whatever, they're not thinking about dying.
No.
They're not thinking about, there is a point that I may not be here. I'm not trying to be
Morbid,
like
sure,
that, talk about death, but
Yeah.
we get
But
some
there's-
people believe different things, but we get
Right.
one chance.
But there's only so much money to help you through the end of your life. And so wouldn't you want to not run out? Right? I mean, that's the whole point of this.
There was a
Like,
book out there,
yeah.
Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And it's about change. And, I love how you hit that on the head. Listen, people, they get to a point, they have this plan. The plan, how people in America live, has been living by that. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to play the market. I'm going to live the American dream. And then I'm going to retire at this age, right? And then they watch the market and it bounces. And then they end up retiring. And this is where you're 100% right. They plan on, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do this. And 90% of the time, what they do is they sit on their couch watching TV. And then they go out and they spend money because now they got nothing else to do but spend money. So now they're spending more money because their lives internally and their perception hasn't changed of adapting to the new space they're in versus being in the work world. So yeah, they might be saving money on gas. Yeah, they might be doing all that, but their income is limited based on Social Security. Let's just say there's a mutual fund involved. Let's say they're making off of some of that and maybe a pension, right? But that money only goes so far. Right. And so they're like, I'm going to go blow all kinds of money. If you're me, you're blowing it on dinners. That's just how I do it. Culinary world, I'm with you on that. But the travel's not happening because they still have expenses at home. They still got fixed costs. They still have all these things. What were they doing with their money when they had it? Was it making more money? Did they invest wisely? What about their kids when they're gone? These are all things. Yeah. And I don't want to be on the morbid side of it either. But yeah, if you're living, let's talk about you living. Let's talk about what you're doing with it now while you're living. Because listen, at the end of the day, we all visit on the Blueberry. You can't take it with you. So what's going to happen to it and how can it benefit and help people in your lives if it's your kid or a relative, right? Am I hitting on the right line there?
Oh, I mean, it's right up what everyone's thinking about.
Okay.
And I think there are people that have money, there are people that have more money, and there are people that have a lot more money.
Yep.
And I think all of those people think the same way. They're thinking about their kids, they're thinking about their grandkids if they have them. They're thinking about what am I going to do now? And I think that the issue is that so many people don't make decisions. And I'm just going to bring it back there for a second.
Okay.
What that calculator does, and especially when you're sitting there with a spouse, whoever that may be, when you see the side by side of my life expectancy against hers or his or whoever's, and you say, oh, I may be alone for a certain amount of time, or he may be alone or she may be alone for a certain amount of time. So that's the vice versa. It's like, now I'm worried because I'm going to be gone, and what is she going to do or he going to do? So there's the planning aspect. There's that one. And that's what I've seen a lot with clients sitting in front of me. It's like they thought about it, but now it just became real. Now it's like the question about, when do I retire? Well, maybe I'd like to do it a little sooner now. Maybe we're not doing the things that we should have been doing, because we were thinking, oh, that's in the future. So it's one of the biggest things that, what did you say to me earlier about planning?
You fail the plan.
Yeah.
You don't plan to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the whole gist of this, is that people don't do it. And when they see this calculator and they see that there is a finite amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a certain amount of life expectancy. Our other part is a health span, which is your healthy life. That's where you get to go out and you're going to be able to do all the things you want to do. Because then there's another part of your life, it's called the care span. And that's the time in life that you could have some frailty. You could be sick. You might not be able to do anything at that point. But that's at the end of the life. And that's not what we're worried about really right this moment. We're worried about your healthy lifespan. What are you going to do with that? And what are you going to do now? And that's where that sense of urgency kicks in for people. To either start planning, because most people have planned by putting money into their 401k. That's been their plan.
Right.
They didn't look at it. They didn't do anything with it. They didn't say, how much should I be saving? They just put money into the 401k. And actually, it's been the greatest thing ever, because people have been putting money into their 401k and not been thinking about it. And they go, oh my gosh, I have some money here. Because I never looked at it and I never touched it, and it's there. But what was that supposed to be in reality of the world? That was supposed to be their pension. Because so many pensions went away, right? No
right.
company has given pensions away. Well, your 401k was supposed to be your pension. So how am I going to live my life? We have our pensions, 401ks, Social Security. So that's really what this calculator is, hyper-personalized, lifespan, health span, care span. But what it's doing, and what I see it's doing, it's actually bringing people together as well. And I know that's
cool.
So funny to say, but when you see a couple, after they see that, turn and look at each other and go, what have we done? Are we ready? How many times have I not seen that? And again, statistically, I'm not saying this is everywhere, but sitting with a husband and wife, so many times in our world, the wife had no idea what was going on with the money. There's always someone in that relationship that's been it. It could be the husband. I was talking to people in Malta, off the coast of Italy, and the men have no idea where the money is. Okay. But so many times there's somebody in the relationship that didn't know. And now when they're sitting there and they see that, they're like, someone goes, are we ready? What did you do to get us ready for this? And now there's a conversation in that relationship that they weren't having before. So again, it goes back to, what should we be doing as advisors and other people? We become a coach.
That's
right. We don't always want to do all of this, but they look at you and go, okay, Kirk, now what are we going to do? Because it's one of these first times, and I love this, okay, I get into it. It's like you see something happen in their relationship that probably hasn't happened for a long time. And you see them come together like, okay.
Communicate. Yep.
There's a communication that wasn't there before, because they were just going to work. They were coming home. They were getting ready for the next day.
Daily routine.
The daily routine. And it gets stale. And now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, wait a minute. Well, can we retire now soon? Like, I never looked at what our money was doing, and what can we do this, and how can we do this? And now they're both engaged.
It's life-changing, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It has been actually, at first it was kind of like, okay, this is a great calculator. This is really cool. We got the science behind it. We got all these years of that data and all those other things. But then it comes down to the person, the people. And it's been that emotion, that emotional connection that we get, that we all want, right? What do we want every day? I want that emotional connection with everybody. You know, if I go get coffee at a certain place, you know, there I
knew
am
that was
using my
gonna happen.
hands. But it's like we want that. And then when you see a couple that came in kind of like stoic and they don't want to talk and they don't want to be involved in this, I don't even need to be here.
Right.
To now they're like, how are we going to do
They're
this?
leaning in
What can we do?
and they're getting curious.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's such a great place to be in a relationship or in anything that's important. Like, get curious to, you know, get more engaged and introspective. So this is just opening up those conversations and being a great facilitator, it seems like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm blessed, right? My wife is a math person. She maths very well. I don't math very well. I get two numbers. I get a color. My father-in-law is my CPA. He loves me. He takes care of me. My best friend is my advisor. He knows how to look out for me. I am what you call an MM, and it's not a wrapper or a candy. It's a money moron. I know how to make it really well, and I know how to spend it even better. And so I look at it and I go, this could be sitting somewhere else where it's making more money, or I can just spend it, right? So, you know, guys like you, that people who aren't blessed like me, that have that, where now my money is spread into areas where it makes sense for my kids and everything else. And listen, even on the insurance side of things, people don't realize that they're even for your kids. There's plans out there, life insurance plans for your kids that they can borrow against while it's making money for their school, and all these different ways to do things to where it's saving you that long run. What is it, Kirk? Like, each kid usually costs their parents like $1 million, $2 million by the time you're dead, right? I mean, that's kind of how it goes. But you're the relief program. You're the one that says, "Hey, listen, I'm going to find a way to increase your own bottom line by saving you on your fixed costs," and that's what you do. And utilizing this calculator is so genius. Utilizing this calculator gets people to kind of open up, right? To where you're able to build that relationship. Because listen, when people put their money or into somebody's hands, it's like putting their baby into somebody's. They want to trust you, and so therefore that relationship build is important. And so it sounds like you're awesome at what you do, and this calculator really helps kick that off, right?
Well, and I think that's a key thing in this industry. I've been doing it for 22 years, and one of the biggest things is trust, right? And it's hard to trust people in anything practically in this world today. You know, the internet, I think, has done that a little bit because there's so many scams and all these other things. But one of the hardest parts of being in this business, especially early on, was the trust factor. You know, and how is someone that's going to look at me? I'm a little younger at that point, 20 some years ago. It's like, why do we trust you? And that was how my goal was. That's how how do I build that relationship? You know, that's the only way we can have trust. One of the things that I've seen with the calculator is like, they do say, oh, you're actually thinking about me. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not talking about products. We're talking about you. Yep. How long are you going to live? And what are you going to do with that time? Yeah. You know, what are you going to do with, I'm going to spend more time with my grandkids now. And that was one of the things you said earlier about money. And what I was talking about is like, do you spend more, less, or the same? Mm-hmm. Well, most people in that first 10 years, they spend a little more, but that's okay if you have a plan.
Right.
Right? If you have a plan, and that's really what the calculator is trying to get people to understand as well, and to help advisors, get this calculator, because they can order the calculator from our company and they can use that as well. So someone could call us up and say, hey, can I use that calculator for my claim? Sure. Because that is a differentiator in our business, because we're looking at helping you as the advisor, go to them now, helping you look at your clients differently.
Right. Well, I remember it's been some years now since I read the book, but I remember a story that you had talked about somebody maybe came to you, or maybe it was like a fictitious story about two people, and they had a plan set up, but it was set up for something that wasn't applicable to them, right? Planning to pass around like 95, right, in the calculator. And then when you're sitting down and assessing their understanding, you compare their current plan with an more accurate plan, and it's just life-changing to see, like, oh yeah, what are the implications of my spouse passing a little earlier or significantly earlier? Like, what happens in that scenario? I mean, that could just be completely life-changing, not only for the spouse, but your family, your lifestyle, just everything. And so those case studies were pretty eye-opening to that.
Well, unfortunately, one of the case studies is personal, and it wasn't the specific case study, but when you think about being prepared at any age, right? We look at life stages and saying, okay, when we get married, we're going to do this now. Maybe buy life insurance or plan a different way or start saving money. One of the stories that's in the beginning of the book, it's actually me, where I'm sitting in a hospital going in to have a colonoscopy because there was something that the doctor saw. And my wife looks at me and says, are we prepared? Literally, as I'm sitting in there when they're getting that first IV and me getting ready to go, and I'm like, yeah, we're good. I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm like, this is just a simple going in, getting a checkup, right? Blow your mind at this point. I wake up in the ICU. Ooh. Almost dead. Ooh. Dying. And I hate to get this morbid on it, but it's a point we don't know. And this is why planning is that important.
Well, and listen, everybody's got a number, but nobody knows what that number is. So you got to create that average of how you live, how healthy you are. What are you doing to better it, to create, and then what's quality of life after or towards that. Now, listen, insurance, you mentioned it. My wife said to me, we need to get life insurance. We both got policies because yes, folks, I'm a smoker, or was at the time. And so, it was a little more expensive for me, right? But I still got the bigger policy, and my wife was always like, stand over there by the stairs for a while for me. And then I saw the hood and the sickle, and I was like, what's happening? Because then the realization is, I just bought life insurance. I don't know what my number is. It could be 10 minutes from now. It could be 50 years from now, right? So I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. You had something you wanted to say on that.
Well, no, I think that's perfect in the sense of, again, we're talking about, I think there's two things, and it's people don't plan usually until it's time, right? And it's like, when do most people plan for retirement? It's about 3 years before retirement. Sometimes it's 1 year before retirement. Yeah, they're not planning before. They're saying, uh-oh, it's coming. Right? And when do most people get life insurance? When there's a life event. I have a child. I get married. They're not thinking before. So that's one of the things that I've really seen through this calculator, through Lifespan, and that's why we call it Pursuing Wealthspan. Because Wealthspan is, it's not just I hate to keep saying, not about your money. Wealth is wealth of my health.
That's right.
Right.
Abundance of finance, abundance of health, abundance of being able to live life on your own terms.
Everything encumbersome.
All of it, right? Yeah. Your friends, how am I living? What am I doing? Where do I want to live? Do I want to move to Florida? Do I want to move to Arizona? What do I want to do now? Do I want to start another business? And it's like we always wait. And that's what, again, I just keep coming back. It's like that sense of urgency wakes people up. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, you're telling me that my spouse and me, we potentially have this amount of time. Now, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to plan better?
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if you're 45 or 65, it's time to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's one of the, we can get into the science and look at the calculators, and we get deep into it. We can even go further and do a genetic analysis if you wanted us to, so it goes.
I'm very curious about this. Like, I geek out on that stuff. Why wouldn't you want to have information with the data available? Like, it's available.
Right. Well, for me, it took tragedy, right? It took a loss for me to go and figure things out the hard way when I lost my parents and I lost my brother. So it was one of those things where it was like, what did I do? They didn't do anything. And look at the hoops that I got to jump through to try to figure out how to manage their stuff. And I call it stuff. If it's money, if it's inheritance, or if it's like this Victrola I have out in this corner that was my great grandfather's, right? What am I doing? And then I was like, what do? I haven't done any of this stuff either. Do I want to do this to my kids? It took tragedy for me to go, hey, open your eyes and start figuring this out. And, I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not at that point either. It's not like I drink bacon grease and,
no, there's a lot of people live to 100,
And they do that, right? And then the runner who's healthy strokes out at like 50. Who knows, right? You just don't know. Like I said, you have a number. You just never know when it is. And then what is the quality of your life afterwards? So having all this stuff done as actually a peace of mind that takes that stress away.
It's biohacking. Really, 100%. It kind of leads into that, right? I'm sure Dr. J you said he's a scientist. He's world renowned. He knows about all that stuff in the blue zones. And yeah.
And again, we can only do so much. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we maybe can link up later, but even Dr. J just came out with a follow-up paper, and I think it's 20 years after his original paper, and it was just in the publication Science. And the point is that we can only live so long.
Right.
No matter how much biohacking and all this, and I think there's someone out in Silicon Valley that spends $1 million a year trying to extend his life. Well, guess what? You can push it a little bit.
Sure.
So one of the things that we have on the calculator is called healthy advice. There's these different areas,
cool.
your BMI, your smoking status,
right.
Different areas, if you change, could extend your life by maybe 1 or 2 years. But there's these people out there thinking, nope, I'm going to push it out another 20 because I'm doing it. You're not.
I am the poster child of it not. Walt Disney froze himself waiting, right, for this big cure to continue to live. Listen, in the life that, to me and personally, the answer to life is the experience of it. You're here to experience it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then you move on to wherever it may be that you believe in, which is awesome. But while you're here, and the people who love you are here, checking out, pursuing your Wealthspan. And listen, I know we got to kind of wrap it up. We're kicking around our 38-minute marker, which it goes by fast, doesn't it? So, listen, if you want to check out and talk to my man Kirk here, that's wealthspan.ai or wealthspanadvisors.com. And, feel free to check out their website if you have any questions. Kirk is there to answer questions. He was just telling me earlier on how he loves calls at midnight. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't do that to him. But, listen, once again, everybody's got a number. Nobody knows when it is. Plan. It doesn't hurt to plan conversations like this. And when you don't want to think about, don't look at it as death. Look at it in a different perspective. It's life. And what are you doing with it? What are you doing with the stuff that you have in it? And who is going to be in charge of that stuff when you're not around? And so trusted people like Kirk is a good place. Go build that relationship, folks.
That's it.
You can it never hurts to talk to somebody, and it never costs you a dime to have a pre-conversation about what's best for you. And especially as a consultant, I preach that to just all of my clients as well. Jackie, do you have anything you want to add?
That's it. Thank you so much for coming in. If you had a closing kind of word or statement you want to share, feel free. Otherwise, we're good.
Yeah, I think you really said it, but it's about what are you going to do with your life from this day forward? What are you going to do to make the change? How are you going to make those relationships better in your life? What have you been waiting for?
Take the sabbatical.
That's right. That's right. And I'll tell you, the one thing that you should be doing in life is watching Let's Talk Local.
There you go.
And listen global. Thanks, folks.